That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, thank you so much for the fantastic support y'all showed on this last video. We're going to do the same thing here, where instead of me breaking up in 2 separate videos talking about some wide receivers I love the matchups for that I think you should be starting, some wide receivers that I hate the matchups for that I think you should be avoiding, instead I'm going to talk about literally every wide receiver. We're going to talk about every matchup here, so we have to keep this intro short, but you know exactly what we have to do. We have to give away some Fantasy Flock Network hats for people that are subscribed to the channel, who have gone down there, dropped that like on the video, and left a comment. Let me pull up our last video right now so we can go through and pick 2 random ones. And our first one going to come out from Bo, who says, "Let's go. Thanks for another banger vid, Mason." No, thank you so much, my friend, for supporting the channel. I genuinely appreciate it. And Lee Loves Golf says, "My birthday is Sunday too. Happy birthday, Mason. 1010 is legendary." Happy birthday, my friend. Hope you do something great on Sunday. And I'll say, we've had a lot of questions asking, what are we going to do for our birthday stream on Saturday, on Sunday? Because, you know, it doesn't matter if it's my birthday. We're live streaming every single day this season. So I promise you we will be live then as well. Make sure you come out. We can try to do something fun. I mean, whatever you want to see, please just let me know down there in the comment section, and we can try to get something going for you. And lastly, please go over there and make a $10 deposit on Underdog Fantasy with promo code FLOCK. On Underdog Fantasy, you can get into some drafts with us. You can also go through and check out some player props. Thomas, I know it's a lot of work, but please, a lot of people have loved it. Can you go down there and include the player props on the screen for Underdog Fantasy as we talk about these wide receivers? They're going to continue to add player props every single day until we get closer to Sunday, when we get more information on the players actually playing in this week. So make sure you go check it out. When you make a $10 deposit on Underdog Fantasy with promo code FLOCK through the link in the description, you actually get daily additional entries to win a Fantasy Flock Network hat, get a max deposit bonus, and you would support the show more than you would ever believe. And yeah, let's go through and let's start this off. We're not going to talk about the Rams Seahawks because I know this video is going to be coming out too late, so it doesn't really matter us talking about that. Let's go to the Jets Falcons to lead it off. And with the New York Jets here, I know that on paper you have a very nice matchup here for Corey Davis. And I actually told some people to start Corey Davis this past week against the Tennessee Titans, where he had a very impressive performance at the same time. But there are a couple things I want to discuss. This game being played in London does make a small difference for us here. And I think you kind of see this with the unpredictability of these London games and what you actually have with the Vegas line for this game. I mean, when we went to go pick the spread for this game, I was expecting that Vegas was going to have the Falcons favored by maybe 5 points, considering how bad Zach Wilson's looked this entire season. I know the Atlanta Falcons, they have their own issues here, but they actually had the spread at like 2.5 points. So I think that Vegas is baking in the fact that this matchup is not going to be nearly as predictable as what you would have in a normal game on Sunday. I mean, it's being played, like if you consider the West Coast, it's being played at 6:30 a.m. on the West Coast. I mean, that's crazy. Of course, completely different time zone, but you have to understand that it's going to be a little less predictable. And what I really want to look at, this matters a lot more, is the Jamison Crowder usage that he got this past week. Jamison Crowder came in, and right away, Jamison Crowder commanded a significant amount of targets in this offense. And I think while, yes, Zach Wilson had his best game of his NFL career, we still have a significant portion of Zach Wilson's career so far looking like he may be one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. Whether you want to blame it on the offensive line, whether you want to blame it on Zach Wilson, doesn't matter. The fact is that quarterback play is atrocious. The Tennessee Titans have one of the worst defenses in the NFL at the same time. We know that game went to overtime as well, so the overall volume's a little bit skewed. So I'm not going to be that excited about playing Corey Davis this week. I know on paper, we had a lot of people in the live streams actually wanting to jam in Corey Davis and like kind of going back and forth with me about Corey Davis, but I think I can't get there. Now with Calvin Ridley, so I'm recording this on the 7th, and Calvin Ridley missed practice today. I mean, he did not participate. Now, we have really no news on why Calvin Ridley missed practice. Probably by the time this video comes out, you will know. And all I will say is if Calvin Ridley is active, you play Calvin Ridley. I mean, here with Calvin Ridley, this is a wide receiver that's averaged over 10 targets a game. A nice matchup against the New York Jets. I'll say as a quick side note, because you don't need me to continue to talk about Ridley, we'll give you an update on his injury later on in the week once we have more data. But with Kyle Pitts, this is 100% someone else that you're wanting to go through and jam in here, as Kyle Pitts is just a tight end who had 9 targets this past week. I mean, he's exactly what people who drafted Kyle Pitts wanted him to be. He's that guy getting used as a receiver in this offense, so go through and start him. Now, our next matchup will be the New England Patriots playing the Houston Texans. And oh my gosh, Davis Mills, we discussed this before he ever officially took a start in the NFL, the fact that he was most likely going to be the worst starting quarterback in 2021 after he started on Thursday against the Carolina Panthers and kind of looked okay. And then you had Jacoby Brissett looking horrendous in Miami. I kind of walked that statement back. I was like, you know what? Maybe we were wrong. Maybe Davis Mills isn't the worst starting quarterback in the NFL. Maybe that title actually goes to Jacoby Brissett. Well, no, I think that we were right all along. I think you need to be avoiding everybody you can in this Houston Texans offense. That may include Brandon Cooks. Now, keep in mind, Brandon Cooks, based on the idea that he is literally the only wide receiver right there in Houston that has an ounce of talent. If you're looking at the market share numbers, this is someone seeing a 30% team target share. This is someone that has all the air yards in Houston. So you would naturally assume a player with that prototype, that's someone you have to go through and you have to jam him in your lineup because it's impossible to find that kind of volume anywhere else. I'll say, well, you're most likely playing Brandon Cooks in your flex if you have him. You can't be excited about it because we saw that Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots defense, they were able to go through and successfully shut down Zach Wilson earlier this season. And Zach Wilson had 0 touchdowns and 4 interceptions in that game. Should not be surprised if we see a similar thing here with Davis Mills. Now, with the New England Patriots, there's one guy that I want to be starting at the wide receiver position. That's going to be Jacoby Myers. Whether you're looking at the snaps played, whether you're looking at the targets in the offense, Jacoby Myers has been that alpha wide receiver so far. And this won't be a game like last week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, where you're seeing the New England Patriots just dropping back to pass every single time, going through and having 50-plus pass attempts for Mac Jones. No, they're going to be able to lean on the run a little bit more, but the efficiency should be up as well. So I think you can consider playing Jacoby Myers. Now in Detroit, they're going to be playing the Minnesota Vikings. They're actually playing in Minnesota here. For the Detroit Lions, you're not starting any wide receivers on this team. Don't talk yourself into Amon-Ra St. Brown. Don't talk yourself into anybody here. This overall offense is just being funneled through the combination of DeAndre Swift and TJ Hawkinson. There's no real reason to go through and assume that we just have to find a receiver in Detroit. Nope, they're not talented. They're playing with Jared Goff. And on Minnesota, we're going to keep it very short and simple. Yes, Adam Thielen doesn't score a touchdown this past week, but I mean, we know if you're drafting a wide receiver, if you're rostering a wide receiver, that his main value is being driven from the fact that he is that red zone threat. I mean, the highs are going to be high when he comes away with 2 receiving touchdowns. The lows are going to be low when he has none. Still, you're going to go through and play Adam Thielen. And for Justin Jefferson, you don't need me to tell you to go through, play Justin Jefferson. A monkey knows to play Justin Jefferson. All right, now our next matchup will be the Philadelphia Eagles and the Carolina Panthers. And I actually think that this is going to be a worse spot for DJ Moore than it was this past week. Now, y'all know I went out and I ranked DJ Moore as a top 5 wide receiver a week ago because we, A, identified that DJ Moore is a certified alpha receiver. B, knowing that with no Christian McCaffrey, he's going to see an expanded target share. C, we weren't worried about the Trayvon Diggs matchup, knowing that DJ Moore plays more so a flanker wide receiver role where he's able to go through and taking gaps in the zone defense. He's not necessarily having to have the capability of getting shut down by a cornerback that's going to be playing more so on the outside wide receiver here. So DJ Moore was a smash this past week, but if Christian McCaffrey is coming back, of course, you're still starting DJ Moore, but you will be lowering your expectations just slightly, as well as I think you actually see the Carolina Panthers here just scale back the overall passing volume slightly against the Philadelphia Eagles because they're not going to have to push the ball as aggressively down the field as they did against the Dallas Cowboys. And on the side of the Philadelphia Eagles here, I think you can actually start Devontae Smith. I mean, with Smith here, going back to what we were talking about with Brandon Cooks in Houston, it's very similar. Smith has been seeing an incredible amount of targets in this offense. If you're looking at his target share, if you're looking at his air yards, he has been the main driver of the football in Philadelphia. Now, of course, you have to be concerned that the passing volume may not be there with Jalen Hurts being a quarterback that is primarily generating his value through running the football. But still, Devontae Smith, someone you can play. I mean, you're 100% starting DJ Moore, no question. Robbie Anderson did see 11 targets this past week, but you're not starting Robbie Anderson. And then on the flip side of it, Devontae Smith, I think that he's a very intriguing flex spot. Not a great matchup for this Philadelphia Eagles offense, but Smith himself, he looks fantastic. Now our next game will be the Washington football team and the New Orleans Saints. You start Terry McLaurin. Don't need me to tell you anything on that. It doesn't really matter what the matchup may be. And then here with Curtis Samuel, this is actually a wide receiver that we told everybody to bench this past week, knowing that coming back from that injury, he wasn't going to see that expanded role right away. Well, now going into the second week of the Curtis Samuel experience, we're getting nobody asking if they should be going through and starting him. And I'm saying, well, yeah, you're not starting Curtis Samuel. Like don't think that all of a sudden I'm talking him up for you to jam him in your starting lineup. Please don't be giving up on him just yet. I mean, with Dyami Brown currently on the week 5 injury report. Yesterday, he missed practice with a knee injury. And then if you're going to be looking at Logan Thomas here, Logan Thomas also not going to be playing in this game with his own hamstring injury. So that should expand the role of what you're getting from Curtis Samuel. He didn't play that many snaps this past week, but keep in mind, he was working his way back from that groin injury. That was his first week back. And I mean, he did get targeted at a high rate whenever he was on the field. So that overall role expands, which it should, considering the overall injuries that you have in Washington. And now that Curtis Samuel is another week healthy, I think that Samuel, I'm not saying to start him, but I'm saying he's going to be a lot more interesting this week than he was last week. And I know everybody's off of him now. Okay, so now our next matchup will be the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Tennessee Titans. And one thing that I have to talk about in this video, and this is honestly extremely embarrassing. Whenever we made our top 24 wide receiver ranking video, I did not include Marvin Jones. That was really bad by me. I mean, with Marvin Jones, if you're looking at the volume that he's had so far this year, I mean, the opportunity has been there. It doesn't really matter what I thought about Marvin Jones, Laviska Shenault, DJ Chark coming into the season. We have to adjust our priors whenever we see how Urban Meyer is going to be utilizing these wide receivers in the offense. With the fractured ankle to DJ Chark, now Marvin Jones stepping up into a role where he is going to be playing as the primary deep threat on this offense. Now, I know Laviska Shenault, I mean, you have some positive reports coming out about Urban Meyer saying he's going to get more involved. Trust me, I love Laviska Shenault, but what do we always talk about here? We always talk about coach speak does not matter. I mean, it doesn't matter what the coaches are talking about. It literally only matters what we are seeing on the field, unless they're giving us some insight of saying, oh yeah, player X, he's not going to be playing on third downs anymore. We want to get this pass catching running back in here. I mean, maybe we should have listened to the Washington coaching staff whenever they were talking about J.D. McKissick this offseason. Regardless, Marvin Jones, no DJ Chark, in a plus matchup against the Tennessee Titans. He 100% is a top 24 wide receiver. You have to play him everywhere you can. And Laviska Shenault is intriguing. I know that Laviska actually got targeted deeper downfield this past week after the DJ Chark injury on Thursday night against the Cincinnati Bengals. I would rather see one more week of Laviska Shenault before we just call him a must-start wide receiver and jam him in here. And now, on the Tennessee Titans side of it, it's just so hard for me to say anything right now. I mean, if A.J. Brown plays and Julio Jones sits, you play A.J. Brown. If Julio Jones plays, A.J. Brown sits, you play Julio Jones. I mean, as of now, based on the practice reports we have, may look like A.J. Brown is actually trending towards playing. Obviously, it's going to be a very plus matchup. A.J. Brown did lead this team in targets both in week 1 and in week 2. And this should be a spot where he has the talent profile, he has the matchup. If Julio Jones isn't here, the target share should be through the roof. So yeah, I mean, if A.J. Brown plays and Julio Jones sits, A.J. Brown could be a top 10 wide receiver this week. Okay, now our next matchup will be the Miami Dolphins playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I'll say here, the Buccaneers, I think this is actually a defense. We have seen this so far this season, and really it hasn't been discussed that much, but you want to be playing your wide receivers against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, just knowing that this defense is going to make it where the opposing offense literally cannot even think about running the football. We've said this all season. We identified Ezekiel Elliott as a buy low running back after week 1, knowing that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense is one of the best, if not the best, run defenses in the entire NFL. Also, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will be able to put up points, so it's going to put it in a position where the Miami Dolphins are having to throw the ball regardless. Also, Will Fuller out this game, so this is shaping up to be a game that I think you can consider playing Jalen Waddle and Devontae Parker. I mean, neither of these wide receivers, I'm going to be very excited about the quarterback play for, with Jacoby Brissett. Jacoby Brissett, I still want to stand by the fact that he is one of the worst starting quarterbacks currently in the NFL, but the matchup's there, the game flow's there, and also, with the Fuller injury, all of a sudden, you have an expanded role for each wide receiver. Now, in the case of Tampa, I mean, as of now, at the time I'm recording this, looks like Rob Gronkowski could potentially be missing yet another week with those rib injuries. And I have no idea why are we seeing so many rib injuries this season. I do not remember really ever having a year like this. But if Gronk is out, knowing the passing rate over expectation that you have for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers so far this season, I think you have to jam in Evans, you have to jam in Godwin, you have to jam in Antonio Brown. I mean, here I know Antonio Brown was very disappointing this past week where I wanted to start him everywhere against the New England Patriots. But if you watch that game, which I'm sure everybody did, you saw that there were just a few plays away. I mean, I think maybe it was based on the rain, but if Tom Brady would have just been slightly more accurate, I know that's a crazy sentence to ever say, but Antonio Brown could have had a massive performance. He could have dropped 25 points, no question. So I think you still play each one of these wide receivers if Rob Gronkowski sits. If Rob Gronkowski does play, however, I think we have to lower expectations on Antonio Brown. Now, our next matchup will be the Green Bay Packers playing the Cincinnati Bengals. With Green Bay, start Devontae Adams. Let's move on. Now, with Cincinnati, this is going to be a spot with that. I think you actually have to lower your expectations for Tyler Boyd if we're going to have T. Higgins coming back in this offense. I know they don't really play the same role where you have Tyler Boyd playing more so in the slot, T. Higgins as that prototypical alpha X wide receiver on the boundaries. But still, just knowing how the targets are going to be distributed here, it does make a lot of sense in that you see the spike in target volume for Tyler Boyd over the past 2 weeks with no T. Higgins in this offense. I think that will come down to earth once you have Higgins sliding back in. I'd be fine starting Jamar Chase. With Jamar Chase here, he's looked fantastic over really the past 4 weeks. He's looked great all year now. And at the same time against the Green Bay Packers, you could see the overall passing volume for the Cincinnati Bengals getting a slight uptick. So yeah, I think you start Jamar Chase. Tyler Boyd, lower your expectations with the addition of T. Higgins coming back in. And with T. Higgins himself, maybe you want to wait just one more week until we get the fact that he's 100% healthy with this shoulder injury. So I think really the only must-start guy here will be Jamar Chase. Now, our next wide receiver matchup. I don't want to start anybody in this game, but we may have to. So with the Denver Broncos going and playing the Pittsburgh Steelers, we're not starting anybody for Denver. I mean, we're not starting Javonte Williams. We're not starting Melvin Gordon. We're not starting Courtland Sutton. We're not starting Tim Patrick. I don't want to be starting Noah Fant. I mean, we've told a lot of people to start Dalton Schultz over Noah Fant this week, knowing that if Drew Lock is at quarterback for this Denver Broncos offense, it can get very ugly, very fast. And this Pittsburgh Steelers defense, I know we had some people coming out in the live stream last night going, oh, Mason, what's up with the Pittsburgh Steelers defense? Are they going to turn it around? I'm going, turn it around? What are you talking about? This defense has been pretty good so far this year. I mean, they limited the Buffalo Bills to 16 points in week 1. The Raiders to 26, the Bengals to 24, the Packers to 27. They've gone up against some pretty damn good offenses. They haven't allowed a single 30-point game so far. I mean, this Pittsburgh Steelers defense has been pretty solid, especially if you consider, the position that Ben Roethlisberger has been putting them in. Now, I'll say that's going to make it where we're not starting anybody on Denver. And with Pittsburgh, now that it looks like Chase Claypool will be coming back, I think you definitely have to lower your expectations for Deontay Johnson. Deontay Johnson, 100% still going to be a top 20 wide receiver. We have him there in our rankings. But just knowing that this wide receiver room is now going to be split up between Juju, Chase Claypool, and Deontay all again, I think this will be a position that I wanted to just sit out of it if we can. I mean, I know Deontay has looked fantastic as of late. Keep in mind, those past 2 weeks for Deontay Johnson, you did not have Chase Claypool. Okay, so now our next game we're going to go to is the Chicago Bears playing the Las Vegas Raiders. And with the Bears here, I know we said this in the live stream, but I just kind of want to come out here and say thank God we got this past week from Allen Robinson because, as I was someone who came out and consistently said Allen Robinson was a significantly better pick than Terry McLaurin in fantasy drafts. I stood by that. I talked about that in almost every video. I somehow turned it into Allen Robinson versus Terry McLaurin. And we said that Allen Robinson was 100% that guy you wanted to go with. I'm not going to lie. It was about the most embarrassing thing ever whenever we were sitting just a week ago. Going into week 4, Allen Robinson was the wide receiver 71 on a points per game basis. It was hard to look at myself in the mirror. It was hard to live with myself when Allen Robinson was the wide receiver 71 on a points per game basis. So thank God we got week 4 happening because in week 4, Allen Robinson came out. He put up a performance that allowed him to rise up in the wide receiver standings. So I'm not that embarrassed anymore. Where now Allen Robinson's actually the wide receiver 70 on a points per game basis this year. So now we don't have to be embarrassed at all. I think Allen Robinson clearly crushing it. Obviously a joke. No, you're not starting Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson's been highly disappointing. Not starting Darnell Mooney. I know a lot of people will want to start Henry Ruggs. Henry Ruggs, I think he's had a 20-yard reception every single game so far this season. Ruggs has looked great. Still not the matchup you want to be playing him in. I think this is going to be one of the lowest scoring games of the week. Really not going to want to watch this matchup between Derek Carr and Justin Fields. I think we're going to sit this game out entirely at the wide receiver position. Now our next game, going over to SoFi Stadium, let's check out the Cleveland Browns and the Los Angeles Chargers. Yes, we're going to be going and starting Odell Beckham Jr., Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. I mean, you don't necessarily need me to talk about Keenan Allen, Mike Williams here. Everybody knows you're starting them. I will say it's a tough matchup against the Cleveland Browns, knowing the Cleveland Browns have a great defensive line. But here with Odell Beckham Jr., I know that a lot of people will be just initially thinking that they should go through and bench him. However, if you're looking at this past week, Odell was just a few big plays away. I mean, if Baker Mayfield would have just been a little more accurate here, Odell Beckham Jr. could have easily dropped 25 points in this matchup. You look at him getting 9 targets in back-to-back games so far this season. I think Odell with no Jarvis Landry here is clearly the alpha wide receiver. Now, yes, it's a toughish matchup against the Los Angeles Chargers. I still want to go through. I still want to play Odell Beckham Jr. I think this is someone that, I mean, honestly, has impressed me so far this year. I know that's crazy to say with the production that he's had through the first 2 weeks, but I'm just kind of happy that he's getting this volume in this offense. I think when you're getting that kind of volume and we have a good understanding of what kind of wide receiver you are, we should expect production sometime soon. Now, our next matchup will be the New York Giants playing the Dallas Cowboys. Yes, Amari Cooper. Yes, CeeDee Lamb have both been highly disappointing. And if I'm going to pull up where I ranked CeeDee Lamb in our rankings this week, as soon as we were watching that premiere in the video this morning, I was like, oh my God, we definitely ranked CeeDee Lamb way too high. Where if I'm looking at it, we had CeeDee Lamb as the wide receiver 13 this week. That's horrendous. I mean, CeeDee Lamb needs to go down to at least the wide receiver 16, wide receiver 17. You have to lower him down your expectations, even possibly further than that, because with Lamb here, he has no excuse for the lack of production. I mean, this has been someone 100% healthy, no Michael Gallup. Now, everything's been funneled through the running backs. I mean, a significant amount has been funneled through Dalton Schultz. I would say that's probably going to just go back a little bit based on the priors that we had with this Dallas Cowboys wide receiver core and how this overall offense functioned. I think that maybe it's not as run heavy as what we've seen over the past 2 weeks. So I'm still starting CeeDee Lamb, still starting Amari Cooper, but we are going to be lowering our expectations. And then with New York, this is an intriguing spot where this past week, y'all know I went through and said to start Kenny Golladay everywhere. Kenny Golladay was a must-start wide receiver with no Darius Slay, no Sterling Shepard. But now that we have Kadarius Toney slightly emerging, and at the same time, you do have Kenny Golladay going up against Trayvon Diggs, I'm a lot more worried about the matchup with Kenny Golladay versus Trayvon Diggs than we were with DJ Moore. Like I said, DJ Moore, we had him as a top 5 wide receiver this past week going up against the Dallas Cowboys because we were saying the cornerback matchup in that instance, it didn't matter that much. DJ Moore was the flanker wide receiver running routes over the middle of the field. This is different with Kenny Golladay. Kenny Golladay is that prototypical alpha X wide receiver playing on the boundaries. So I think this cornerback matchup matters a lot more. I think this is going to be harder for Kenny Golladay to overcome. So you can start Kenny Golladay. I'm not that excited about it. I think it's really up to you with Kenny Golladay. I think there are reasons to get excited given the volume that he may have in this offense and reasons to get worried given the cornerback matchup. Now our next game will be the 49ers playing the Arizona Cardinals here. And with the 49ers, you start Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel's had almost 500 yards through 4 weeks. We don't necessarily know exactly what to expect here with Trey Lance, but you're starting Deebo Samuel. You're benching Brandon Ayuk. I mean, I fell into the trap and telling some people to play Brandon Ayuk this past week. I mean, if we thought a matchup was close, I was like, okay, well, I guess we can't go Brandon Ayuk here for the upside. Well, it looks like Brandon Ayuk just not the wide receiver we thought he was. You have to go through and you definitely have to bench him. I don't even want to blame it on the hamstring anymore. I just think that Brandon Ayuk, for whatever reason, is not going to have the role or maybe just isn't as talented as we once thought coming into the year. Now, on the side of the Arizona Cardinals, I know AJ Green has been hyper productive over the past 2 weeks, but that has been with DeAndre Hopkins slightly banged up. And at the same time, this past week with DeAndre Hopkins lining up against Jalen Ramsey, I'm benching AJ Green. I'm benching Christian Kirk. I'm benching Rondale Moore. I know that you're probably going to have one of those guys popping off this week, but the problem is trying to determine exactly who that's going to be. I think it's going to be very hard. I would prefer to just go with the easy option. Just start DeAndre Hopkins here. Now, our next game will be the highest scoring game of the week, possibly the highest scoring game of the season between the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, with Buffalo, I mean, this is an offense that this past week against the Houston Texans, I said to bench Cole Beasley, bench Emmanuel Sanders. I mean, this wasn't a team that was going to have to be throwing the ball once they got to the fourth quarter, knowing how large the spread was on that game. It's completely opposite here. Going up against the Kansas City Chiefs, play Cole Beasley, play Emmanuel Sanders. We have Stephon Diggs ranked as our wide receiver 1 this week. I know that's aggressive, but I think this Buffalo Bills team, I mean, it's going to be throwing the ball efficiently, throwing the ball with volume, knowing the defense they're going up against is not that solid at all. And we know that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to be one of the few offenses that can put up points against this Buffalo Bills defense. I cannot wait to watch this game. This is going to be so damn exciting. Now, our next matchup will be the Indianapolis Colts playing the Baltimore Ravens. Honestly, I know Hollywood Brown's been really good, but if Rashad Bateman plays this game, I'm not going to be that excited about playing Hollywood with Michael Pittman. He's been seeing a significant amount of volume, but we have questions around this overall offense, as well as the matchup's not the best against Baltimore. So if we could avoid really starting any right wide receiver in this Indianapolis or Baltimore situation, I definitely think we would. Now, thank you. I really hope y'all enjoyed this video. Make sure y'all go down there, drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel to get entered in to win a Fantasy Flock Network hat on the next video. And also, most importantly, make sure you go use promo code FLOCK on Underdog Fantasy. Go check out those player props, get in a draft with us, support this channel more than you would ever believe, and also get daily additional entries from here on out until the end of the season to win a Fantasy Flock Network hat. And yeah, that's all I got for y'all. Really hope y'all enjoyed the video, and I really hope y'all have a great day.